The Galactic Senate Hall was unlike any other place in the known universe. A dome so large it could hold an entire city, with walls made of living crystal that shimmered faintly under the soft light. The seats were arranged in a perfect circle, each one occupied by the representative of a different alien world. Over 300 species had gathered here today, their colors, shapes, and sizes forming a strange, living mosaic. But for the first time in years, the hall was silent. No arguing. No political shouting. No backroom deals whispered between allies. The air felt heavy, tense. At the center, on the raised speaker's platform, the High Chancellor stood. Tall and thin, wrapped in ceremonial robes of deep blue, his long fingers tapped nervously against the glowing console.
Ow.
The Chancellor's two secondary eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of deep unease for his species. He pressed his palm against the console. Deep resonating tone echoed across the chamber, the sound of the emergency decree system. It was only activated in moments of grave crisis. Every representative knew this sound. Most had never heard it in person. High above, the hall, the holographic display, flickered to life, projecting the Chancellor's words in hundreds of languages at once. Every being in the chamber read the same message. Effective immediately, humans are forbidden in all member worlds. All existing humans in council space are to be detained. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Low, at first, then louder. Voices clashed. Translators stuttered. Some representatives simply stared in disbelief. A winged ambassador from the avian world of Valtara rose from his seat. "High Chancellor, what is the meaning of this? On what grounds?" But the Chancellor raised one long hand. The Council's decision is final. The reasons are classified." The room went colder. Classified. That word was not supposed to be used here. The Galactic Senate, even war declarations required public evidence. To ban an entire species without explanation was unheard of. Corinne, a young alien journalist from the independent world of Trelos, leaned forward in the press section, her recording device floating silently by her shoulder. Her smooth, copper-toned skin caught the light as she whispered to her colleague, "They're hiding something. Something big." Her colleague, an older reptilian reporter with eyes like polished stone, glanced at her uneasily. "Don't start this, Corinne. You know what happens when you ask the wrong questions?" But Corinne wasn't listening. I scanned the crowd. She was looking for reactions, real reactions, not the practiced faces of politicians. She found fear in the twitch of a tentacle, in the way an insectoid ambassador's wings shivered. And then she saw him. A human. He stood near the far edge of the chamber, dressed in simple gray travel clothes. No guard beside him, no restraints. He looked utterly calm, as if the words just announced had nothing to do with him. He didn't frown, he didn't speak, he smiled. It was not a mocking smile, nor a friendly one. No. It was a knowing smile. The kind that made Corinne feel as though he had read the end of the story, and she was still stuck on the first page. For a moment, their eyes met. Corinne felt something strange, like the air between them had shifted. It wasn't fear exactly, but it wasn't comfort either. And then he looked away as if she no longer mattered. The Chancellor's voice broke through her thoughts. "Any human found within our territories will be taken into custody immediately. Transit lanes will be closed to their vessels. Trade licenses revoked. Any species found aiding them will face sanctions." This time, there were protests. Representatives from the frontier worlds shouted over one another, "We have humans in our crews. They're engineers, medics, traders. They have saved our colonies more than once." Still, the Chancellor did not waver. "This decision is unanimous among the Council's inner chamber. There will be no appeal." Corinne's recording drone hovered closer. The story was huge, historic even. But her instincts told her it was also dangerous. She could already imagine the headline. "Humanity declared illegal, no reason given." Her colleague leaned in. "Turn off your recorder, Corinne. This is not for us to publish." She ignored him. Her gaze flicked back to where the human had been standing. He was gone. No sign of movement. No security escort. Just gone. She scanned the massive chamber again, a sense of unease crawling along her spine. How could someone just disappear in a place like this? The exits were guarded. The press section was sealed until adjournment. A recording drone suddenly flickered and dropped to the floor, lifeless. Corinne bent to pick it up and noticed something. A folded scrap of paper lay beside it. Paper. Not a digital chip. Not a holographic tag. Paper was nearly extinct in the modern galaxy. On it were just for handwritten words. In a language she did not know, yet somehow understood. Don't trust the Council. Her breath caught. Above, the Chancellor's voice boomed again. This session is concluded. All representatives, please return to your home systems immediately. The ban will be enforced at once. The crowd erupted in noise again, but Corinne didn't hear it. She was still staring at the note in her hand. Somewhere in the vast chamber, unseen, the human was still smiling. The unofficial truth, the Galactic Senate Hall was empty now, its echoes replaced by the low hum of maintenance drones polishing the crystal floors. The banners of hundreds of worlds still hung from the dome, but their colors seemed duller after today's announcement. Corinne had left before the official adjournment. She didn't want to risk more attention from the guards, or from that human. Now she sat in a dim cafe on the lower levels of the station, far from the polished halls of power. The cafe smelled faintly of burning metal and strong spice, the kind of place senators would never set foot in. But journalists like her often used for off-record conversations. She stared at the folded note on the table. Don't trust the Council. The words bothered her more than she wanted to admit. Who had written them, and why had the human given it to her? Her recorder was dead, still unresponsive after several resets. That wasn't just a battery failure. Someone had killed it. Across the table, her older colleague Drav sipped from a steaming mug. His reptilian eyes never left her face. You're already too deep, Corinne, he said slowly. I told you to let it go. I can't, she replied. They banned an entire species without giving a reason. That's not just a political move. It's hiding something big. Drav set his mug down with a thud. Do you know how? Many journalists have gone missing chasing big stories. You think you'll be the one to survive? Corinne leaned forward. What do you know? For a long time, Drav didn't answer. He glanced around the cafe, checking every table, every shadow. Then he lowered his voice. The humans. They've always been dangerous. Not because they're violent, though they are. It's not because they're clever, though they are. That, too, it's because he hesitated. Because they don't follow the rules. That's not enough to ban them from the galaxy, Corinne whispered. No, Drav admitted. It's not. But there's more. Something happened. Something the Council swore to bury. Corinne felt her pulse quicken. What happened? Before Drav could answer, the cafe's door chimed. A figure stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the same simple gray travel clothes as before. The human. Corinne froze. He didn't look at her at first. He ordered a drink from the counter, paid an old physical currency, and took a seat by the window. But then, without warning, he turned his head and locked eyes with her again. The same faint smile. The same feeling like he knew more than he should. Drav's voice dropped to a whisper. Don't engage. Pretend you don't see him. But it was too late. The human stood and walked over to their table. Miss Corinne, he said politely. His voice was calm, steady, but there was something in it that made her skin prickle. You know my name, she said quietly. I know many things, he replied. He glanced at Drav. You've told her just enough to get her killed. Drav tensed. We're just having a conversation. The human leaned closer, resting, both hands on the table. The Council will come for you. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. Corinne's mouth went dry. Why? He looked at her for a long moment, then said, Because you asked the wrong question. She swallowed. And what question is that? The one no one else dared to ask, he said. Why humans are illegal. Corinne sat back, trying to read him. Then tell me. Not here, he said. Too many ears. He slid a small, Metallic chip across the table. This will get you into docking bay 14 in 2 hours. Come alone. Drav shook his head. Don't do it, Kareen. But the human was already walking away. Kareen stared at the chip in her hand. It was old tech, not trackable, not registered in any station database. Whoever this man was, he knew how to move without being seen. 2 hours, she said quietly. Drav grabbed her wrist. Kareen, listen to me. Come back the same, if you even come back at all. She pulled her hand free. I need answers, Drav. His expression softened for the first time. And remember this, humans don't play by the galaxy's rules, because the galaxy isn't playing by theirs. 2 hours later, the stat. The hum of the ship's engines was steady, almost comforting. But to Kryn, it felt like the sound of a door locking behind her. The cabin was small, one pilot's chair, a narrow bench, and a cluster of control panels covered in switches and levers. The walls were lined with strange tools and sealed crates, none of them labeled. The human sat in the pilot's chair, his eyes fixed on the star field ahead. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally, Corinne broke the silence. Where are we? Going somewhere you've never heard of? He said without looking at her. And somewhere the council doesn't want you to know exists. She leaned forward. If you're going to tell me the truth, start now. He chuckled softly. The truth is dangerous. Even hearing it puts you at risk. That's why they made sure no one talks about it. You mean about humans? Yes, he said, glancing at her. But not just humans. The ban isn't the whole story. It's the last chapter of a very long one. Corinne crossed her arms. Then start from the beginning. The human hesitated, then pressed a button on the console. A shield of shimmering light flickered into. Place around the cockpit. This will block surveillance. Now we can talk. Turned to her fully. My name is Mason Hale, and I'm one of the last free humans in council space. She studied him last. There are billions of humans on Earth. Mason shook his head. Not anymore. It's not in the way you think. It's the ones you know about. The ones the council lets you see, they aren't free. They're monitored, controlled, erased if they step out of line. Corinne frowned. That sounds like conspiracy fiction. Exactly, Mason said. They made sure it sounds that way, so no one believes it. But here's the part they can't erase. History. He reached into a crate and pulled out an old data drive, the kind museums displayed but no one actually used. This contains records from before the council's censorship. Back then, humans were explorers, reckless, unpredictable, and dangerous to any power that tried to control them. We built alliances, but we also broke them. We traded freely, but we also fought freely. The council couldn't stand that. That doesn't explain why they made humans illegal, Corinne said. Mason leaned closer, his eyes hard. Because we found something we weren't supposed to. Something older than the council. Something that belongs to no one. She waited for him to go on, but he didn't. What did you find? She pressed. He smiled faintly. You'll see for yourself soon. Hours passed. The stars drifted by. Mason didn't speak much, but Corinne noticed he kept glancing at the scanners, as if expecting someone to follow. Finally, a faint alarm chirped. Mason's hands flew over the controls. We've got company. Corinne's stomach tightened. Who? Council interceptors, Mason said. Small, fast, and armed. Karen's voice rose. They found us? They always find us, Mason said calmly. But catching us? That's harder. The ship jolted as Mason pushed, the engines to full burn. Outside, stars blurred into streaks of light. A sudden burst of static crackled through the comms, a voice speaking in the cold official tone of the Council Enforcement Bureau. Unknown vessel, power down and prepare to be boarded. You are carrying an illegal human. Compliance will result in leniency. Corinne looked at Mason. They're talking about you. No, Mason said. They're talking about us now. Before she could respond, the ship banked sharply. A blast of energy lit up the darkness where they'd been seconds before. Mason's hands moved like lightning across the controls. The ship dipped, rolled, and spun through the narrow gaps of an asteroid field. Corinne gripped the bench, heart pounding. "You're going to get us killed." "No," Mason said, eyes locked forward. "I'm going to get us free." After what felt like hours but was probably minutes, the scanner blips faded. Mason let out a slow breath. "We're clear, for now." Corinne slumped back, still shaking. "You live like this every day?" "Every day I'm free," Mason replied. She stared at him. "Why take me? Why risk this for a journalist you barely know?" "Because," Mason said quietly, "if the truth dies with me, the council wins. I need someone who can tell the story, someone who can survive long enough to spread it." Corinne hesitated. "And you think that's me?" "I don't think," Mason said. "I know." They finally approached their destination, a small, dark world hanging in the shadow of a dying star. It had no visible cities, no lights, no signs of life. "This is where it started," Mason said as the ship descended. Corinne peered through the viewport. "What's down there?" "The reason humans are illegal," Mason said. And then, before she could ask more, the ship vanished into the planet's shadows. The planet that shouldn't exist. The ship cut through the thin, dusty atmosphere. Outside, the world below looked dead, a cracked wasteland of red and gray. Rock, broken only by jagged mountain ridges. No cities. No roads. No signs of water or green life. Corinne pressed her face to the viewport. "You brought me all this way. For this?" Mason kept his eyes on the landing controls. "You're looking at the surface. The truth isn't on the surface." The ship touched down with a soft thud. As the engines powered down, a heavy silence settled over them, the kind of silence that made Corinne's ears ring. Mason stood and grabbed 2 breathing masks from a wall hook. "Put this on. Air's thin here, and the dust will eat your lungs." Corinne hesitated, then strapped the mask over her face. The smell of stale filter cloth filled her nose. She followed Mason to the airlock. When the door opened, a gust of cold, dry wind hit her like a slap. The ground crunched under her boots. The horizon seemed endless and empty. "Where are we going?" she asked. Mason pointed toward a line of black cliffs in the distance. "There." They started walking. The ground was littered with fragments of something, bits of metal, strange carved stones, twisted beams half buried in dust. At first, Corinne thought it was random debris, but the more she looked, the more it felt arranged. "Mason, this looks like wreckage." "It is," he said without slowing. "Old wreckage. Older than the council. Older than any of their member worlds." That made her stop. "Older than the council? That's impossible." He turned back, his eyes sharp. "That's exactly what they want you to think." By the time they reached the cliffs, Corinne's legs ached. Up close, she saw that the rock face wasn't natural at all. It was smooth in places, carved in others, with markings she didn't recognize. "What is this place?" she whispered. Mason stepped to a section of the cliff and brushed away a layer of dust, revealing a symbol, a perfect circle with 3 jagged lines cutting through it. The design seemed to hum faintly in the air. "This," Mason said, "is the mark. Of the founders? The who? The people who were here before any of us. Before the council. Before recorded history. And humans. We're the only species that ever managed to find more than one of their sites." Corinne's chest tightened. "That's why they made you illegal." "That's part of it," Mason said. "We didn't just find these places, we understood them. We learned things here that no one else could." Mason pressed his palm to the carved circle. The rock shifted with a grinding sound, revealing a narrow passage into darkness. "You first," he said. Corinne stared into the blackness. "Is it safe?" "It's not even a little," Mason said, stepping in after her. The tunnel walls were smooth and cold. Faint lines of light pulsed along the floor, guiding them deeper underground. The air grew warmer, heavy with a metallic scent. They entered a vast chamber. Corinne froze. The walls were covered in more of the strange markings, glowing faintly, like starlight trapped in stone. In the center stood a tall, angular machine, its surface sleek, untouched by time. "What is that?" she breathed. Mason's voice was almost reverent. "A founder beacon, one of the oldest still active." She walked around it slowly. "What does it do?" Mason looked at her with a half-smile. "Depends on who you ask. To the Council, it's a threat. To humans, it's a key. A key to what?" "Everything," he said simply. Before Corinne could ask more, the chamber trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Mason's expression darkened. "Followed us." A sharp hiss echoed through the tunnels, the unmistakable sound of airlock doors opening. Karin's heart raced. "What do we do?" Mason stepped to the beacon and began pressing a series of glowing panels. "We do what humans always do when we're cornered." "What's that?" "We use the thing they're afraid of." The beacon flared to life, flooding the chamber with white light. The symbols on the walls began shifting, rearranging into patterns that hurt Corinne's eyes to look at. From the tunnel, voices shouted in alien languages. Footsteps pounded closer. Mason grabbed Karen's arm. "Hold on!" The floor beneath them rippled like water, and in an instant, the chamber, the voices, and the entire planet seemed to vanish. Corinne's stomach lurched, as if she had fallen down an endless pit. The white light faded, replaced by a dim golden glow. The air felt warmer, richer, like it carried the scent of rain on dry earth. She stumbled and caught herself on something. Smooth and warm, not stone, not metal, but something that seemed almost alive. Mason was already on his feet, scanning the area. "You made it." Corinne looked around. They stood in a wide-open plain under a sky filled with two suns, one large and pale, the other small and burning orange. Tall silver grass swayed in, a wind she couldn't feel. In the distance, towers of crystal shimmered in the light. "This isn't the same planet," she whispered. Mason gave a small nod. "The beacon doesn't just send you somewhere else. It sends you outside the Council's reach." Her mind raced. "This place isn't on any map," Mason finished. "They can't track us here. The founders built these pockets of space. Humans found them first, and that scared the Council more than anything else." They started walking toward the crystal towers. As they moved, Corinne noticed something strange. The grass bent away from them, as if it knew. They were coming, she shivered. "Why did humans even come here in the first place?" she asked. Mason smiled faintly. "We were curious. Too curious for our own good. We didn't just travel, we explored where no one else dared. The founders, they liked that. They left clues for us, paths no other species could follow. And that's why the Council declared you illegal?" Mason's voice grew colder. "Because every time humans find one of these places, something changes. We come back with new ideas, new tools. Things that upset the balance they've kept for centuries. They want control. Humans break control." As they neared the towers, Corinne realized they weren't buildings at all. They were grown like giant plants made of crystal. Between them, pools of water shimmered, reflecting the twin suns. In the center of the largest pool stood a structure shaped like an open hand, each finger pointing to the sky. Faint light pulsed in its palm. Mason stopped at the edge of the pool. "This is it." "What is it?" "The founders called it a seed point. Think of it as a storage vault. Inside is knowledge no one in the Council has ever seen." Corinne's reporter instincts flared. "If you show me what's inside, I could expose everything they're hiding." "That's exactly what I'm counting on," Mason said. He stepped into the pool. The water barely rippled around his boots. When he reached the hand-shaped structure, he placed both palms against its base. The pulsing light flared, shooting beams upward into the sky. Corinne shielded her eyes. Shapes formed in the beams, not words, but images. She saw strange machines, star maps of galaxies she didn't know, and humans. Not just from Earth, but scattered on countless worlds, living side by side with alien species long before the Council existed. Her heart pounded. "This means Mason turned to her, his voice firm. This means humans weren't the newcomers they claim we are. We've been out here longer than anyone, the council lied. They erased our history. Before she could speak, the sky above them darkened. A shimmering tear opened in the air, like a wound in reality. Shapes emerged, council patrol craft. Corinne's eyes widened. I thought you said they couldn't find us. They shouldn't be able to, Mason growled. Unless... A voice crackled from above. Mason Hale, surrender immediately. The Human XL program ends here. Corinne's stomach dropped. You were expecting this, weren't you? Mason's jaw tightened. No, but I planned for it. He touched the structure again. The pulsing light deepened to a blood-red glow. Ground beneath the towers began to shake. What are you doing? She shouted over the growing rumble. Making sure they never get their hands on what's here, Mason said. The founders built fail-safes. If the wrong people come, the seed point moves where? He looked at her, a dangerous smile on his face. Somewhere they'll never find, but we're going with it. The light from the seed point surged, wrapping around them in twisting threads. The council ships fired beams into the ground, but the energy bent away harmlessly. As the world began to dissolve around them, Corinne felt that same falling sensation from the beacon. Only this time, it was faster, wilder. The last thing she saw before everything went white was Mason, standing tall against the glow, as if daring the entire galaxy to stop him. If you want, I can now make Part 6 the final truth, where Mason and Corinne arrive in the most dangerous founder site yet, and the full reason humans are feared gets revealed in a high-stakes finale. That's where the HFY moment can really hit. The final truth, the white light faded into darkness. For a long moment, Corinne thought she had gone blind. Then faint blue sparks appeared in the air, floating like fireflies. As her eyes adjusted, she realized they were standing in a vast underground chamber. The walls were covered in markings, human markings, stretching as far as she could see. Mason stepped forward slowly, his voice low. We made it. Where are we? She whispered. The first founder vault humans ever found, he said, and the one the council fears most. The floor glowed beneath their feet as they walked. Strange shapes formed in the light, outlines of ships, cities, and weapons unlike anything Corinne had seen. She touched one of the glowing lines. It pulsed under her fingers, and suddenly an image appeared before her, a memory, but not hers. She saw humans walking beside towering aliens, their faces confident, their eyes full of purpose. She gasped and pulled her hand back. That was our past, Mason finished. The founders didn't just know humans. They built with us, fought with us. We were the ones who ended the old wars, not the council, and they've hidden it for thousands of years. Corinne shook her head in disbelief. But why erase that history? Because, Mason said, turning to face her, if the galaxy knew what we were capable of, we wouldn't just be members of the council. We'd lead it, and that terrifies them. The air in the chamber trembled. A voice echoed from everywhere. At once, deep, ancient, and not entirely human, new blood enters the vault. Speak your purpose. Corinne froze. What was that? Mason didn't look surprised. A founder guardian. Every vault has one. He stepped forward, speaking. Clearly, we seek the truth and the right to share it. The voice was silent for a moment. Then, truth comes with weight. Knowledge brings war. Will you still carry it? Yes, Mason said, without hesitation. Corinne hesitated, her heart pounding. Then she stepped beside him. Yes, the blue sparks in the air swirled together, forming a massive figure, neither alien nor fully human, but something in between. Its eyes glowed like distant stars. Then you will see. The floor blazed with light. The walls came alive with moving images, whole histories unfolding at once. Corinne saw humans standing at the helm of fleets that spanned galaxies. She saw them making alliances no other species could manage, ending wars that had burned for centuries. She saw fear in the eyes of those who tried to control them, and she saw betrayal. At the height of humanity's power, the Council's ancestors had struck. They destroyed records, erased maps, and scattered survivors to the edges of space. And they wrote a lie that humans were reckless newcomers who needed to be controlled. When the vision ended, Karen's hands were shaking. They took everything. "From you?" she whispered. Mason's eyes burned with quiet rage. "And now, we take it back." The founder guardian stepped aside, revealing a pedestal in the center of the chamber. On it rested a small silver sphere humming with power. "This holds the paths," the guardian said. "Every vault, every secret, every truth." Karen's breath caught. "If we take that, we can wake up every human in the galaxy," Mason finished, "and show the Council exactly what they've been afraid of." Before they could move, the chamber shook violently. A rip of light tore open in the air. The Council had found them again. Armored soldiers poured out, weapons raised. "Mason Hale, you are under arrest for violation of galactic law," the lead soldier barked. Mason stepped in front of Karen. "Funny thing about laws," he said. "They only work if people believe in them." He grabbed the silver sphere. The room erupted in blinding light. The Council soldiers staggered back, their weapons melting into slag. The Founder Guardian's voice boomed, "You are trespassers. Leave or be unmade." The soldiers didn't need telling twice. They vanished into the rip of light, which sealed shut behind them. Corinne looked at Mason, her voice shaking. "What now?" He smiled, not with arrogance, but with the calm of someone who finally had what he needed. "Now we share the truth. Everywhere, every human colony, it's every hidden world. And when the Council comes for us," he glanced at the glowing walls, "we won't be running." They left the vault together, the silver sphere pulsing between them like a heartbeat. Above, twin suns rose over a horizon no Council map had ever shown. For the first time since the decree that made her species illegal, Corinne felt something stronger than fear. She felt hope. And somewhere in the distance, the galaxy began to change.